for any tripod, cat or dog.
Why do some vets do things that way?
So many people don't realize that their dogs are in pain.
This is Tripawd Talk Radio, and I'm Jim. Today, we're welcoming back someone who changed the way so many of us show up for our pets at the vet. Dr. Nancy Kay, award-winning veterinarian, author of Speaking for Spot, and lifelong animal advocate. We're catching up on her newest passion project, teaching middle schoolers the truth about puppy mills, and her brand new middle grade novel, A Dog Named 647, an action-packed coming-of-age story about a runaway puppy mill dog and the kid who won't give up on her. Renee talks with Dr. Kay about empowering families to be medical advocates, what to consider when an amputation is on the table, and how to tune into the dog you know best when the decisions get hard. If you've ever felt that white coat freeze at the clinic, or you just love a great dog story, you're in the right place. So sit back and enjoy this conversation with heart, science, and hope. Let's dive in.
All righty. Dr. Kay, it has been years since we talked, and I am so excited to chat with you again. I want to start by saying that you were the very first veterinarian who really taught me the importance of advocating for your pet at the clinic. And up until Speaking for Spot, I was the typical pet parent who went in with the white coat syndrome and just didn't question anything and let things happen instead of taking a more active role as a participant in my pets' lives. So I just have to thank you for all of the great work you've done over the years since we first talked.
It's so great to be here. Although we haven't really seen each other in the past, I feel like we're old friends because we've kind of stayed in contact over the years.
Definitely. And it's nice to see all of the work that you've done advocating for animals. And we're gonna talk about everything that you've been up to. And we're also going to talk about making the amputation decision for your pet. First, tell me what you've been up to since Speaking for Spot.
Well, I worked as an active veterinarian up until about 8 years ago, then retired. I've been writing pretty much the entire time, mostly blogging on a very regular basis. And now I've transitioned the blog over to Substack. And then I really got turned on to the idea of educating children about puppy mills. I was inspired by Greta Thunberg, who your listeners may know. She was a kid who got very involved and became a vocal advocate in terms of the climate change that's happening on our planet. Mm-hmm. And I've been disappointed in what my generation and your generation, other adults have not been able to accomplish in getting rid of puppy mills. And maybe I should step back and explain. A puppy mill is a large commercial breeding facility. If you think of factory farming of chickens or cows, this is factory farming of dogs. Mm-hmm. And basically, profit is prioritized over the physical and psychological well-being of the dogs. So I listened to Greta Thunberg and admired her, and I thought, I need to write a book about puppy mills for middle graders. It's that age range where they're just sort of coming out and looking at the social issues around them, expanding out into the world a bit. And so, as you know, Speaking for Spot was nonfiction, and that's what I'd written. So I tried to write a book for middle graders, a nonfiction book for middle graders about puppy mills. And I tried several different tactics, and with each one, I found myself thinking, if I was a middle grader, I would never want to read this book. But that it's got to be done through fiction. And so I spent a good amount of time educating myself about writing fiction. And that book has been in the works for 8 years.
Wow.
Working with critique groups, learning so much. And I had 12 different middle grade beta readers read it. This book is called A Dog Named 647. And less than half of those middle graders had ever heard of a puppy mill before. And
Wow.
so that made me feel great. Like, oh, okay, this book might really accomplish something.
Where did you find the kids to read the book?
My daughter-in-law is in publishing, and she has a listserv, and she sent out notifications to all these people saying, do you have middle graders who would be willing to be beta breeders? That's how
Wow.
they were recruited.
I think that is brilliant. It's a
Thank
great
you.
place to start because it's not I mean it's still a problem. I have a relative who has a puppy mill dog and she had no idea she got a puppy mill dog and this dog is a train wreck. I love
Yeah.
her to pieces, but she's just this dog is a mess. And
And it's
so
such a, go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, it's just adults do not realize the problems that come along with these dogs, not just for the poor dogs, but for the generations after them. And I loved the Substack that you wrote recently, where you kind of went undercover at a puppy mill
Oh, it was a dog
auction.
auction, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there's a few dog auctions in the Midwest, and it's where puppy millers come to trade dogs. And maybe they're unloading some dogs, or maybe they want to buy some dogs. And it is run just like a livestock auction, the exact
Wow.
same way. Only I can read so much into the eyes of these dogs.
Hmm.
And having been inside puppy mills now, I've been inside 5 puppy mills. I would get so fed up having to rewrite my book one more time. And then I just think about the expressions in those dogs' eyes and felt like
Hmm.
I just have to do this.
I loved that post, and I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes
Oh,
because I
okay.
thought
Thank
that
you.
was incredibly courageous of you to write about it, to go there and expose what's going on. Because there's that phrase, cognitive dissonance, I believe, where people have a dividing line between the meat on their table and our pets
Absolutely.
and the animals we're not, quote, supposed to eat. And as a lifelong vegetarian, I've been a vegetarian for 30, 40 years now. And it blows my mind that people can do things like have a puppy mill auction. And these are the dogs we're supposed to call our family members. We're encouraging this industry to do this to them. This is
Right.
horrible. And obviously, like you said, adults our age are not paying attention. And so what better place to start than the kids? Because I know that when I was about that age is about the time I realized that the meat on my table was not that different from the meat on my dog who was forced to be outside because my mom didn't want dogs inside the house. Long story
Yeah.
there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a great age for kids to start learning about this. So we will absolutely be happy to promote that book. Really
Good.
glad.
And I did write a recent Substack on cognitive dissonance in puppy mills. That might
Hmm.
interest you. Yeah.
Yep, I think that's where it came into my head again. It's been a while since I was thinking about that. But your Substack is awesome. Please
Thank you.
keep up the great work there.
I will.
So today we want to get back to your roots as a veterinarian, and we want to talk about making the amputation decision. This is something that, for me, it's been a long time since I had to be in those shoes of being told that my dog needs an amputation. I only remember the terror, the feeling in my heart that I was just shattered, and I don't really remember a lot about the thought process I had in trying to
Yeah.
decide. So I'm hoping today that we can break it down
Sure.
and you can help us go step by step on how to decide if this is a good decision or not, because we always say it's not right for every animal. There are some
Absolutely not.
situations where you don't want that animal on 3 legs.
Mhm.
But how do we know? And a lot of us turn to our vets and we want them to tell us, what would you do? And most vets will not go there. Most vets will not say, I would do this if I was your dog. And I think someplace I read that a really good veterinarian will not tell you to do what to do. They kind of lay out the facts and let you decide.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. And what are some of the factors that should be taken into consideration when we're trying to decide?
So alluding to what you just talked about, in terms of the care, medical care for our pets, guess what? We're the team captains. And we have a lot of people on the team. We may have a rehab therapist. We have this veterinarian, this surgical veterinarian. There's a bunch of team players, but we're the team captain. And that's as it should be, because we know our pets better than anyone else can possibly know our pets. So I just want to put that out there to begin with. And if someone asks, and they ask all the time, what would you do if he were your dog? And I would say, well, I can tell you what I would do with my own dog, but that has no relevance to what you would be doing with your dog. Yeah. So one of the first things I encourage people to go back to, and the two big reasons that limbs are amputated, one, osteosarcoma or some other type of malignancy, and two, trauma. And so I think what's important is to think about what was the baseline quality of your pet's health and happiness before the limping began or before the car accident. Because if your dog was, 10 years old, large breed dog, not getting around very well, not very active and playful, that's an important thing to consider, because the surgery is not going to restore your dog back to anything at all better than that baseline quality of life was. And for a while, it may make it worse during the recovery to the end. Yes. So I think that's something really important to talk with your veterinarian about. How is my dog's overall health? Has there been progressive kidney failure? Has he been dragging his back legs a little bit? Has he lost some of his conditioning to do exercise? So that's a consideration. Another big consideration to me is the dog's body condition score.
Oh, yes.
Because obesity is going to make the recovery so much more difficult for a dog, because we're shifting all the weight to 3 legs rather than 4 legs. Something else I consider is it a front leg or a back leg? We know that front legs carry about 60% of the animal's weight, and the back legs carry approximately 40%. So when I see a tripod and it's a back leg amputation, I always feel a little bit better for that dog. Because dogs with front leg amputations, especially if they're really big, thick dogs, I'm thinking of a Rottweiler kind of, or a heavy pit bull, that might be harder on them. So that's important to know. I think it's really important to know. Am I going too fast here? You want me to slow down at all?
No, please.
Oh,
This is great. Thank you.
Okay, great. What's the health of the other legs?
Yeah.
If we're going to remove a back leg, we're going to remove the right hind leg, but the left hind leg has a bunch of arthritis in the knee from an old cruciate ligament tear, or has massive hip dysplasia in that hip, and it was the right one that was carrying the dog for the most part, amputation is likely not a good idea.
Oh, I will stop you there, because I learned that lesson with Nellie. So we found our current dog, Nellie, who we call 3.5-legged, because she was in a shelter with a leg that looked like it was mangled and needed amputation. And we adopted her, assuming that amputation would take care of that leg. We just take that leg off and she'll be a happy dog. And this was just a couple of years ago at 2022. Um, and
How old is Nellie?
Nellie is a senior.
Uh-huh.
And here's the other thing. She was also 15 pounds overweight at the
Wow.
time. And she had some issues. And so we took her to Colorado State and had her evaluated by their orthopedic team. And what we learned was amputation would be a really bad idea for this girl because she has elbow dysplasia on the other leg.
Yes.
And she is a German Shepherd. So she already has OA in her hips, osteoarthritis. So what we decided was to manage the situation. Her leg, it's technically a carpal flexion contracture, so she can't extend her wrist. It from an old injury when somebody had her, they didn't treat it and it froze in a weird way. And she uses it for balance and a little bit of handwork with her bones and things like that. But it's still there. It still works. And so what we decided was, well, let's get her back into shape in other ways. Let's get the weight off of her, first of all, which helped a ton. And now we're managing.
Unintended.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're managing the rest of her
Yeah.
needs as a senior dog. And so we learned right away that, boy, it reminded me of a good quote that an orthopedic surgeon told us once, which was, amputation gets rid of a problem now, but it creates a chain of problems later on down the line. And whether that's during recovery or a year later or 2 years later, a dog will always pay the price eventually of having one less limb. So, as you were saying, it's important to take the whole picture into consideration.
Where I like that, because I would worry that could talk people out of doing an amputation when it's a really good choice for an animal. And
tell me a little bit more about that. That's interesting.
yes. So with osteosarcoma, we know that they're going to live maybe another year post amputation. And people always say that's too short of a time. Yeah, but if the 10th of your dog's overall lifespan, that's putting it in different terms. And right now with the osteosarcoma, your dog is in a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And what if we can get rid of that pain and your dog can just go launching itself along the beach? You know, I'm thinking of dogs that are in really great shape. They're athletes.
Yeah.
And they have a huge heart. And so I would worry that what that surgeon said could talk people out of an amputation. Now, long-term effects probably won't apply because with osteosarcoma, they're not going to live into the realm of long-term effects.
That is so true.
Yeah. Trauma, that's a whole different discussion that I think that we should have.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of segues into the point that I was going to make, which is, what is your dog's personality like?
Yeah.
And is your dog that German short hair or your border collie? You know, they just want to run and they're hopefully nice and lean and they take it in stride. No pun intended again. And when I was practicing, we didn't think much about phantom pain the way that it's thought of now. From what I've read, about 34% of dogs experience some degree of phantom pain or nerve pain post-amputation.
Yep.
And there's medications and physical therapies that can be used to help with that. So it depends on what shape your dog is in and what's your dog's personality like. If I was going to undergo some significant treatment on a dog, or put them through some significant treatment, if it was an Afghan or a collie, I really help dissuade the clients because those are dogs that just give up. They just give up and roll over. They're not going to try hard, you know?
Wow.
So that's what I mean by what is your dog's innate personality like? Is your dog a sparky fighter or is your dog truly a couch potato? And So this sounds a little woo-woo and out there, but I really do recommend going eyeball to eyeball, nose to nose with your dog and spending some significant amount of time searching for answers about what your dog might really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
We know that osteosarcoma and other types of bone tumors can be exquisitely painful. And that's because the periosteum, which is the lining of the bones, they have millions of nerve endings, which is why bone cancer is so painful in dogs as it is in people. Yet some of them, and it's unpredictable which ones, will respond beautifully to pain medication, just beautifully. And so if your dog happens to be one of the lucky ones, then maybe amputation would be put on the back burner. Amputation is very unlikely to prevent metastasis of the cancer in the future. Because if you're thinking, well, if we get the leg off, the cancer's not going to come back. Unfortunately, that's not the case. By the time the cancer's been diagnosed, even if chest x-rays are clean and clear, it's going to find its way back in 98% of cases within a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I always encourage my clients to think about when they're making a truly big decision, and amputation is a big decision. Can you change your mind if you don't like what you see? Well, with amputation, no, you can't change your mind. But if you were to say, I just want to try medical treatment and see how it goes, you can always change your mind and opt for amputation if things aren't going well.
Yeah, we do tend to see that quite a bit, like in the case of a soft tissue sarcoma that, has a resection done, the vet gets it off, and then we'll see if it comes back. We're right where we started, but at least we got some good quality time, and we'll see how the dog responded to that surgery and that pain medication. Most of us don't even really know what our dogs are like on pain medication until they go through something like this.
Okay.
And that is a really tough thing to manage for a lot of dogs. We have seen in our community that pain management during recovery is probably the biggest issue because it really is kind of unpredictable the way some dogs, like you said, will do great. They'll respond to the formula for pain medication for an amputation, and then other dogs, it just doesn't touch them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you bring up a good point, which is I think we should differentiate. When I talk about bone cancer, osteosarcoma, that's cancer in the bone. That's the one that's going to come back within a year in 98% of the cases. Unless they're treated with chemotherapy, it might give them a little bit more time. Soft tissue sarcomas are a whole different ballgame. That can have a much better prognosis with amputation. Soft tissue sarcoma means it's a malignancy within the muscles, not in the bone or in the tissue underlying the skin. So that's a different ballgame.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, definitely. There are different types of soft tissue sarcomas, like ones that will become very invasive later on, or may become invasive, I guess is a better term. But then what about if you have a dog who is hit by a car, let's say, and you have to decide, do I want to try to save this leg with surgery and pins and an external fixator and all that? Or should we just amputate now? I mean, how do you make that decision? Because it's really expensive to try to save a leg. And how do you know that's actually going to pay off?
Right. And it's relatively inexpensive to amputate in the overall scheme of surgical procedures. So one is you speak with the hopefully surgical specialist who's doing the work on repairing the leg that looks like dynamite went off, and get an real experienced knowledge to predict what the outcome of the surgery will be. What's the likelihood it's going to work? what's the likelihood that my dog will be able to use the leg normally again? And I would hope that your veterinarian could give you kind of percentage odds. I think there's a good 75% chance that this is going to heal with some work on your part and expense on your part. And he'll be able to walk and run and play again. So it's important to try to pin the surgeon down on what he or she thinks. When it comes to cost things, because if people make a decision just based purely on cost, there can often be a lot of guilt associated with that.
Oh, yeah.
So I tell people, pretend that you are Rupert Murdoch, or I'm not going to say any of the names that I don't want to say right now. Suppose you're somebody really rich and money is not even a concern. If you divorce yourself from that concern and think about the decision you would make on behalf of your dog, because sometimes people are surprised and they recognize, oh, even if I didn't have to pay for the surgery, I still would opt for amputation rather than this very involved surgery that has a 50% chance of returning my dog to normal function. And if it doesn't work, then we're probably back to the question of amputation. If you have a dog that's in pretty terrible shape, obese, very old acting, not just a number. My current dog is 17 years of age and he goes hiking with me still.
Wow.
So not chronological age, but basically how does your dog seem behaviorally? All those factors are going to impact either option that you take. So I think it's sitting down with a veterinarian that can give you his or her really honest impressions of the prognosis. And the work that goes into helping a dog save a leg is a lot more than the work that goes into helping a dog with an amputation recover, because there's going to be broken bones and mangled tissue, and that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, we have seen some of those recoveries where you're not just dealing with the leg, you're dealing with other injuries that the dog had during the accident, and then the chance that there could be an infection that happens. And so then you're dealing with caring for wounds that can be really awful to deal with.
And something else that I typically advise people about is put yourself out into the future, let's say 6 months from now. And if you did the amputation and you didn't try fixing the leg, how are you going to be feeling about that? How will you be able to live with yourself knowing you made that decision? By the same token, if you decide to try to salvage the leg and it goes well, we know how you're going to feel. But if it doesn't go well and you have to resort back to amputation, how are you going to feel? Neither are going to feel good, but what can you live with most easily? What's going to give you the best peace of mind? But playing out the different scenarios out into the future.
It's a very similar thought process for deciding on chemotherapy as well.
Absolutely.
So when you're dealing with osteosarcoma, there's never a one size fits all answer for every situation. Everybody's story is different. Everybody's dog is different. And you have to do what you can live with and know that in the end, no matter what, let's say with osteosarcoma, we know it's going to come back. Can you live with the fact that you did or did not give your dog chemotherapy? What if your dog gets really sick from the chemotherapy, which doesn't happen all that often, but when it does, can you live with seeing your dog having the side effects? These are things we never expect to face when we bring a dog into our lives.
Well, the other thing about chemotherapy is, one of my questions always is, if you don't like what you see, can you stop it?
Yeah.
And that's very true with chemotherapy. So if you say, yeah, I'm going to try that first injection, but if I have a vomiting, lethargic dog on my hands who's sick for a week after the injection, which is rare, then you can say, no, no more of that. Or if my dog is just so traumatized going into the veterinary hospital, again, we try it. You go eyeball to eyeball with your dog, do some soul searching. You can always stop it if you don't like what you see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not true with an amputation.
So correct. Yeah, you can't put that leg back on. What about, this is kind of a curveball question because I didn't give it to you ahead of time, but what about when you and your significant other or the other decision maker in the pet's life don't agree? This is a situation we see happen quite a bit.
That's really tough. And in my book, Speaking for Spot, I tell a story about my old golden retriever. We discovered a liver mass and trying to decide, should we remove it or not? And we weren't sure what kind of cancer it was. This is back in the old days when we didn't do much in the way of non-invasive diagnostics. And I said, we were fortunate because we were both on the same page. If you're not both on the same page, then it's a matter of degree in my mind. On a scale of 1 to 10, how adamant are you about doing this amputation? On a scale of 1 to 10, how opposed are you to doing the amputation? And if one is a 10, one is a 6, you can kind of compare notes that way. It's as in any relationship, there's compromise. And yeah. So you may not ever really be on the same page, but you agree on a way forward.
Yeah. And I think that's where it comes back to both of you having that heart to heart with your dog. And I don't think that's woo-woo at all. I mean, we spend so much time and so much energy on our pets. And like you said, we know them best. So what would prevent us from actually looking into their eyes and knowing what they would want to do? I do think that in a lot of cases, there are situations where we as humans have a hard time putting their needs first because
You're
we
right.
cannot stand the thought of being without our pet.
You're absolutely right. So did you and your husband have a conflict about making a decision?
It's funny you say that because with Jerry, we did not. Both of us were on the same page about amputation because he had osteosarcoma and that was very painful. And we were like, okay,
Yes.
let's get rid of the leg and everything else is icing on the cake.
Yeah.
That for us, that was easy. When earlier this year, Nellie had a lump on her torso that grew so big in about a month. And it was a lump that was like a little pencil eraser a year ago. We had it looked at and did a fine needle aspirate on it, and it was harmless, supposedly. But then another mass started growing around it. And it was huge. And so we got her into an oncologist, and my immediate reaction was, well, we're going to do whatever it takes. Whatever kind of cancer this is, we're just going to fight it. That's it. And my husband wasn't like as willing to say that. I think he probably would have in the end, but Jim was a lot more cautious in the approach where I was, whatever it takes. Nellie's our girl. We're going to fight for her. And, it's not so much about fighting for your dog, but it's like you said, it's like fighting for their needs and their wants and their purpose, really. What is their purpose in this world, in your life and the lives around them? Were they meant to be here for 14 years and maybe the last 4 were just kind of not very happy ones? So like Jim and I like to tell people now, okay, when you're facing this decision, how do you want to remember your dog? And it's tough because it brings up all these emotions about letting go and knowing that our dogs' lives are so short and being okay with that. Most of us aren't. So there's a lot of situations. Go ahead.
The grieving process begins long before the animal dies.
Good point. I think there's your next book. Because yes, that we start grieving from the moment something like this happens.
So what happened? What did it turn out to be, or what did you do?
We got very lucky. It was a very low what is the mitotic
Low
index?
grade. Yeah.
Low grade. It was like a stage 1. It was huge and ugly, but it was almost completely harmless.
Oh, good.
I think the oncologist said it was about a 13% chance of it coming back. It was like very low in the big picture.
Good,
And
good.
luckily, because she had been so overweight before we got her, there was a lot of skin to cover
Yeah,
up
yeah,
the
yeah.
area that he had to take out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
You brought up another point that I do think is important in making a decision about amputation, and we've
yeah.
touched on it a little bit, but what is your dog's job description?
Yeah.
And so if you have the border collie who lives to be chasing sheep, is that something that your dog will still be able to do? If your dog job description is snuggling in bed with you at night, is that something your dog will be able to do? If your dog has to swim in any source of water, but three-legged dogs can swim remarkably well.
Yeah, and they don't swim in circles either.
Correct. Correct. So, by amputation, will you potentially be taking away the thing your dog loves most in life?
Mm-hmm.
Just food for consideration.
It is. It is. And there is a new normal that once you make that decision, if you go forward with it, you have to be okay with that new normal. And
Yes.
for us and a lot of people, those long 2-hour walks that you used to take together, they're not going to happen with a dog who's missing a
Right.
leg.
That's right.
Yeah, and there are ways to manage that. Dog strollers now. We have a stroller for Nellie. She's 75 pounds, and we push her around.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's awesome. It's great. And that is one way that she is able to get out and still enjoy life. And there are things we can do, but it takes management and time and you being okay with it.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a tough decision and nobody can make it for us.
No, stepping up to be your dog's medical advocate is tough, especially if it's making decisions about euthanasia.
Oh,
You didn't realize when you adopted that adorable puppy that that would be part of the job description.
yep. And gosh, it's something we try to avoid for so long, but eventually all of us will get there with our pets. And boy, that's when speaking for Spot comes in really handy. I think if you can get that book if every new dog owner had that book in their hand and kept it on their shelf for their dog's life,
Mm-hmm.
I think things would be so much easier along the way because really learning how to be an advocate at all stages of your dog's life is what they really want from us. That's really, they don't want a lot from us. They just want a human that's going to respect their needs and their desires and, like you said, their job in this world.
Exactly. I've had several people tell me that those with a copy of Speaking for Spot, that they've used the help from the book with their own pets, but they've also used it to help themselves in their own medical visits with their doctors.
I would say so. Absolutely. I think it is still just as relevant as the day it came out. And I think you published it at a time when we really did start questioning.
Yes.
Nicely, sometimes firmly, but just really, being respectful of our physician and our veterinarian's role in our life, but also standing up for ourselves.
Right. And recognizing that we have a choice in who we select to take care of our pet's health.
Absolutely. And now you're teaching a whole other generation about advocating for these amazing dogs and knowing the real truth about these puppy mills. I mean, it's like a full circle kind of book that you've put out here, Dr. K, and we're so happy to help promote it. And
Thank you.
seriously, tell everybody where they can get your books.
So my website is Dr. Dr, not a period, so drnancyk.com. And the books are going to be available. They launch in September and will be available on all the online booksellers. But I would love it more if you went into your independent bookseller and said, "Oh, you don't have this book. I hear it's a great book. Can you order it?" That's what I would really love for you to do.
Likewise.
Also, if you have kids, I'm also gearing up to begin. I'm developing a webpage now for an organization called Kids United for Animal Welfare, so that they'll not only be learning about puppy mills, but they'll be learning about egg production and what happens to all those little baby male chicks that aren't going to be layers. What happens to those birds? Ugh. And dogs and pigs and all of that. Without preaching, don't eat meat. I'm not going to do that. It's what I do as a veterinarian. I just give you the facts.
Yes.
That's what I want to do.
That's what we need, and that's what we are so grateful for. And when you're done with that website, please let us know, and we'll spread the word. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. K. It's a real joy to talk to you again, and we will be seeing you on the internet.
Great. I'm a huge fan of yours. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Big thanks to Dr. Nancy K for joining us on Tripawd Talk Radio. Today we heard two powerful reminders. First, you are the captain of your pet's care team. So ask questions, weigh options, and choose what's best for your dog's health, personality, and job description. Second, amputation is a big, irreversible decision. If you're faced with that, consider baseline quality of life, body condition, and the health of the other limbs. Then partner with your veterinarian on planning, pain management, and recovery. Check the show notes to learn more about Dr. K's books, Speaking for Spot, and her new novel, A Dog Named 647, plus her Substack and Kids United for Animal Welfare, or visit drnancyk.com. And remember, you're not alone. Head to tripawds.com for guides on making the amputation decision, tips about chemo and pain control, rehab resources, and much more. Then, join the community at tripawds.circle.so for 24/7 support from others who understand. We've got your back, and your three-legged friends. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe to Tripawd Talk Radio for more pet amputation tips from experts, and claim your free gift just for listeners at downloads.tripawds.com/podcast.